all of our religious sort of understanding into one particular way of believing. Kind of you're with us or you're against this sort of idea. They also believe in kind of this very traditional approach to interpretation. In other words, our religions have become diluted over the course of time. And if you want to go back to kind of the sanctity or the purity of a religion, it's the only way to do it. It's the reason why they're willing to sacrifice their lives in the process. Interestingly enough, just as we become more secularized, the United States is also seeing greater prevalences of fundamentalism as well. Probably the best examples of fundamentalists in the United States are going to be kind of usually in many cases, your right-wing extremist Christian groups, like your KKK, or other sorts of kind of militia. Think about people in Montana that are hiding out and espousing everything in terms of God and going back to a more pure white race or more pure Christian race or whatnot. Those are going to be your fundamentalists here. When we tend to read about the news, or we tend to read about other groups of people that tend to be extremists, getting about Al-Qaeda or Hezbollah or Hamas. Okay, again, a couple of other extreme examples on the other side. How are we doing so far? Okay? Nothing terribly new? All right. This is the part that's tricky, because kind of the remainder of my slides that I'll go through is I'll try to go through them fast, but it's going to be on the individual details about each of the religions. Here's what I don't know. I have no clue what they're going to ask you, which I know is terribly frustrating. Like in a world history class, in world history, I can give you a better idea of questions they might ask you, but they might ask you to compare religions. They might ask you a detail about a religion. They might give you this structure, which, by the way, they've done before. If you've done, I think, in your Barron's book and a couple of other practice tests, they'll give you a picture that looks like this and be like, identify what religion it's associated with. And you're like, figure it out from the architecture.
Would the people be in it?
Probably not, but they could be. And the dress from the religion might lead you to believe, okay, well, based on what they're wearing and their hair, or maybe even their skin color and the structures that are there, I can identify that it's not. But you also might be stuck between a couple. So that's the real tricky part of this. And so if you guys get like, dude, Mr. Shepard, why are you going into all this stuff? Because I don't really know, but at least I can give you maybe a broad kind of swap to consider. So here we go. Hinduism. Here's what you got to know. Found predominantly in India. It's the 4th largest religion. Hinduism doesn't have necessarily a holy book, although it does have some books that are associated with it. And because Hinduism is an ethnic religion, we also know that it doesn't necessarily have a founder. It also isn't necessarily, and we don't actually know when it started, interestingly enough. If you look over at this map, by the way, frequently visited place of religious importance to Hindus all over India, Hindu place of pilgrimage, broad regional or sectarian importance to Hindus. And again, you'll notice, obviously, where is it all found? In and around India. Okay, and again, so you're to be Hindu in order to kind of go to the holy places, you gotta be there. Okay, so they do have some texts that are called the Vedas. I think I'm pronouncing that right, if I'm not, correct me. So, the Vedas are, again, a collection of stories, but isn't necessarily considered the holy book. Right? It's not the Bible, it's not the Torah, it's not the Quran. A lot of the references in India, and this is, I think, kind of interesting to note, is that there's a lot of references to water in terms of what's important. The Ganges River, for instance, is super important in the Hindu faith. Lots of festivals and whatnot, harvest, again, going back to our ethnic faiths. Brahman is the super important one from here. Brahman is the divine creator. Brahman is God, but God comes in many forms according to those that are Hindu. So, there could be literally hundreds of gods, that's going to go out here in a second. Okay? Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, all of them, again, are going to be kind of incarnations of Brahman. Cool stuff. Alright. So, there's going to be a couple of important concepts, so before we do that, take a minute to chill. And I'll get back to you in 1 minute. I was on a roll.
Yeah. I don't have any other.
Well, again. I'm not going too fast today. I try to slow down a little bit. That's why so many people didn't show up. It's okay. Keep working for free for the people who want to come. That's what I'll do. Kind of like a communist. Without liking communism, I'm not going to hit you, I promise. Although you're listening to me.
Yeah, there's one person in here right now you would hit. It would be me.
Oh yeah, you're definitely at the top of the list. There's really no one else close. So I was doing deadlifts today, and you've done deadlifts before, right? So I forgot how much weight I was doing. Oh my God, for a weight on them. So I put 205 pounds up. Oh, that was good. So I did that. So like what I had previously done, I was doing 165. But I could do it. Sometimes ignorance is good. I was just hoping to do it good. Wow. I could deadlift about 250 by the end of the day for reps.
A lot of highlighting.
Reach that?
Like float up the stairs. No, I haven't done the plyometric workouts yet.
There we go.
Mr. Shepard, your sign.
Thank you.
Kelly was going to.
That's okay. I'm not that mean. Despite what they say.
He's mean.
Of course, I think I was.
Emily didn't sign in. I didn't sign in.
Okay. Oh, good. More people for Mrs. Buckarelli. Her kids care more. It's okay.
I didn't know she was good.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. I'll go home and lay in the fetal position and rock myself to sleep. All right. You do it. Okay. Major beliefs. Here's what you got to associate when we talk about Hinduism, and I'll talk a little bit quicker here. If we don't quite get to Christianity, probably okay. Reincarnation. All right, the belief in life and death, and that we come back again, and we come back in some other sort of form. Reincarnation is super important for kind of their social structure, which is what we call the caste system. And the caste system is basically those that are at the top of society to the bottom of society, and based upon your ability to achieve your end objectives in your current position, the idea is the next time you're reborn, you can either go up or down in the caste. Yeah?
I thought that was the system that we learned about, for like measuring land.
That's the cadastral system. Okay. They want to do things in life. None of that stuff is terribly different. This term, though, I think is right, because the end goal is to achieve moksha, which is salvation or liberation, and removal from the cycle of life and death in order to kind of achieve whatever the end state is. All right? So reincarnation occurs because you haven't quite gotten to the top, and once you get to the top, how you break through from that is through what they call moksha. Moksha. You say moksha, I say moksha. Just don't call me late for dinner. All right. It's not a really good background. Blue. Got a lot of really ugly slides here. Okay. Okay. All right. Any questions on Hinduism? All right. No. Good. Buddhism. Okay. I put the numbers on there again just to give you an idea of just perspective for size. There's about 300 million. Buddhism is found predominantly in China and Southeast Asia. And in many cases, Buddhism was kind of a response to Hinduism, especially because of the disagreements that he had regarding the caste system of India. That's one of the kind of the strong Buddhist critiques of Hinduism. This idea that you were rigidly placed in a structure, you couldn't move out of it in your life, and in the course of dying and being reborn again, you can move up or down this ladder that was very kind of absolute when you were living. And he was really concerned by that. The primary mode, though, of movement is going to be through commerce. And so what happens is it starts in India, and it's going to move as traders move through, and they go to China and open up some new markets. India eventually falls away from being kind of an important point of Buddhist thought. So while the heart of Buddhism might be in India, it doesn't exist in India nearly to the same levels, if really at all, today, because of the critique of the caste system. So I think that's important to note for yourself, just that difference. But it does spread as far away as the Koreas and Japan, although Japan is not very large numbers. So what do you got to know? Four Noble Truths, got to know them. Okay? You don't need to know each one of these. Here's the sum of the Four Noble Truths. We all suffer. And we suffer because we have greed and because we desire. And our end goal is to break free of that greed and desire. That's the Four Noble Truths. We all have greed, we all have desire, and we all suffer accordingly. And our goal then is to break free of that suffering. Now, Buddhists believe in karma. Karma, by the way, is a kind of a strong staple of non-Eastern or non-Western faiths. And karma is the idea that things that you do matter and will come back to you, both in terms of what's good and what's bad. Okay, so you're driving down the street, or you're walking down the street, and you kick a puppy in the face. That's cool, you get kicked in the face. That's karma.
Buy a puppy.
All right, maybe you buy a puppy, but that would be awesome. All right. I just like this little puppy flying through with the bum. All right. So, maybe someone will drop a puppy on your head. All right. So that's karma. That's karma. Now, the other one's okay. But again, this is up here again, I verbalized it, but just so you guys know again, rejection of the caste system, that's the big part. In terms of the movement, okay, two different branches of Buddhism. I don't really know the difference off the top of my head, and I researched it at the time, but I forget. But here's the big part. You'll notice it starts here, and eventually it leaves, and it diffuses to the south and to the east, or to the north and to the east. Okay, that's the big thing to keep in mind in terms of this diffusion process. Judaism. Judaism is probably the smallest of the faiths that we study. Okay, even our shamanist faiths, well, our shamanist faiths probably individually are smaller, although collectively they might be a little bit more. 14 million adherents, or followers, or believers worldwide, most of which are concentrated in Israel. Judaism is a monotheistic faith. They follow the Old Testament. And the controversial part about Judaism is the creation of the Jewish state after World War II. It's called the Zionist movement. Zion, Z-I-O-N. The Zionist movement is a biblical reference to basically the creation of an Israeli homeland. Oftentimes you'll hear fundamentalists who disagree with the creation of the state talking about those that support Zionism. They make Zionism look like a really bad word. And again, it's up to your faith, whatever you might believe. But this is what's created that conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. Not the Palestinians, okay, they're not fighting over Harper. Right? They're fighting over the holiest land probably on the earth in two faiths. Not a good joke, I probably will use the Palatine reference in the past. Okay. By the way, I'm sorry, real quick. With Buddhism, the other part, which I'm not sure why it is up here, the way to get through this, the Four Noble Truths, there it is through the Eightfold Path. That's the other term that might come up. Okay, so those are kind of the big things, and these are things you got to fix in order to break free of suffering. I totally forgot to mention that. My fault. Sorry. Okay, Christianity. Christianity is 2 billion. We know it's the largest. And by the way, those numbers are estimates, so you're going to see different numbers. But I think maybe we had different numbers on the slide already. Originates in Bethlehem, the birth of Jesus. Okay, this is important. Missionaries are super important for its diffusion. I would say to know that that's important, but also note that the Roman Empire was super important for the spread. It's really an interesting transformation that the Romans, which aspired a lot as the Greeks did, had many gods. The Christians were kind of this underground sect that was among them,